Man, there are some brutal people out there checking the clock saying, "Oh, I'm here. I'm on time." But too bad Aaron isn't. Of course, usually the worst comments are typically from my buddy Rob, who is also an admin and part of Photog Adventures. So, hey Rob, hey everybody, it's Wednesday and it's time for Milky Ways. And so, eat Milky Way candy bars. Milky Way photography. And today we're going to show you a feature that it comes from an actual course created by Photog Adventures with Eric Benedetti. Let me show you guys something right here. Ba-ba-bum. You're going to see this course, and if you haven't already taken advantage of this course or don't have access to it, there is a link down below. Eric Benedetti taught us an awesome lesson through a one-day workshop that was online, and then we took that content and then saved it into this course. And so we have all these YouTube videos that were created, and they were raw, like this video right here, this post-processing video. This is still raw. This is just the raw live presentation. And what we have is processed, better, and polished versions of those videos here from that live day. And so in this content, you're going to learn what gear you need, how to work with that gear, some practices and best practices of how to work with the star tracker and do panoramas. And even more importantly, man, Eric Benedetti's post-processing. Oh, it is brilliant. I am going to give you guys something that is going to be so amazing, it's going to be dissatisfying. You're going to sit here and listen to what you can and be out of context and just blown out of your mind about what it is he's saying, but it's going to be a great preview of what there is to have from this course. So just quickly, we're going to look at this segment right here as well as this segment. And so let's start off right away, get right into it, and listen and learn from Eric Benedetti.
I've brought these actions with me. This is astronomy tools, and then there's also this Annie's Astro Actions. I think astronomy tools is a little bit better. Annie's kind of leaves a lot of artifacts, but you know these.
Let me go ahead and pause there for a second and show you guys astronomy tools. If there's anything that you guys get from this video and take home with you right now, it is this set of astronomy tools. There are these Photoshop actions, and you'll see that in Eric's video. Oh, I guess it's the screen. You'll see down here, this is the actions bar. Familiar at all with Photoshop? Not familiar with Photoshop? Well, here is in Photoshop, there's history and actions. You can click into it. He's pulled it down from up here down to this point so we can just look at it quickly. Go to window and open up the window for history or actions. And this stuff is quick macros. It's as if someone came to your computer and said, "Oh, I know something you can do right here where we're going to change and do some curve adjustments and then tweak this. Oh, let me just do it for you quick." And they go on your keyboard and go, and they switch things, grab the mouse, pull sliders over, choose RGB code, and they're doing all this crazy magical wizard stuff on Photoshop for you, and then said, "Okay, here you go, Aaron." That's what these are. It's as if someone came in and just all of a sudden hit that button and did it for you. And you're going to watch Eric use one of these for the next 10 minutes. And astronomy tools is right here. It's 22 bucks. You can get it from prodigitalsoftware.com. The link is also down below. Completely recommend it. There's all sorts of cool things in here. I haven't begun to take full advantage of this. And so this right here is an amazing thing that you should add to your arsenal for photography and processing with Milky Way. So let's say goodbye to me. Turn my mic down, turn Eric up.
So the astronomy tools is from Carboni's. I can pull up the.
He's gonna pull.
Let's see.
He's gonna pull up the screen. Let me just fast forward a little bit.
New subscriber.
So this is live. This is why he's talking. He's applied one of the actions.
Play. This will almost certainly take.
Okay, let's choose which action stuff he went to.
I don't really use the action set for this wide angle stuff except for this star size reduction. So if we go to astronomy tools, there's this select brighter stars.
Select brighter stars action. That's what he's hit play on right now.
90 years.
That's what he's hit play on right now. And it's going through and applying all these cool things.
Steps, and actually I can expand. You can expand the action, and you can see all the steps that it takes. It's pretty cool. new subscriber.
Let me fast forward a little bit.
27 watching now, so you guys are awesome.
Sometimes it doesn't do a good enough job, and you have to expand it. Slow and rambling.
The content on the screen
it's gonna show up eventually. Oh, it's so hard to find
everything
too.
Up there.
Here we
is
go.
Fantastic, and I can't wait to watch and rewatch this.
All right, so we have our stars selected. Let's see how good the. I mean, this is amazing. Okay, so this is what this action has done. You can see it has basically selected all the stars, and how well it selects the stars is going to be really dependent upon your lens. This Sigma 50mm, the copy that I have, is like absurd how sharp it is. And you can even see it's like selected a satellite trail right there. Yeah, it's just a great action at doing that. And so if we go like all the way down to pixel level, you can see there's a little bit of a buffer around each star. Sometimes it doesn't do a good enough job, and you have to expand it. You know, you can expand it by a pixel, and you can see here now there's a huge buffer around each star. I usually, for this lens, I don't do an expansion because the stars are so sharp that it does a really good job. You can, what I usually end up doing is feathering actually by a pixel or so, and just kind of bringing that threshold around each star closer to the core of the star. And the reason you want to do that is
okay, it is on there. Sorry.
When we do our minimization here.
I think so. When I said check and nailed it.
So let's hide the selection.
The thing is, I can hear my audio down, so I don't think that they can hear me, but maybe they are.
Function H.
So this is Eric Benedetti going through and showing us how to do it specifically. And you know, the best part about this post-processing lesson is that you're going to be able to see him do it, struggle with the computer, go through the process, wait for things to do things, fighting with action keys, you know, his shortcut Command H. And so what he's doing right now, Rob says, we can hear you. Even though I turn this mic down and it says I can't hear it in my headphones, you guys could hear me. And I yelled check really loud to see if it would upload. Brendan is here. Let me turn on my video so you guys can see Brendan. He's right there.
So
he's getting ready.
Filter other.
He's getting ready for Photog favorite. And so you guys could hear me the whole time and I yelled check in your ears. So sorry about that. I did not mean to. I was checking to see how loud it would go. Bad idea. Bad idea to check yelling at you guys. But this post-processing takes you by the hand and you see the whole process over and over and over. And it's really fantastic because you don't have any spots skipped. You don't have anything that is sped up, and so you don't know what exactly is happening. Now, there's a few moments where I'll mark in this other video that it goes for about 15 minutes or the next 7 minutes of just fixing the mask, the select mask for fixing the foreground. And that could be something you want to watch, or it could be something that you want to delay. And so we're going to see that video here in a second. But I'm going to continue on with this lesson with Eric Benedetti.
This is going to look like crap right off the bat.
Will you know right off the bat when the selection went away?
Yep. I mean, you can see, I almost never do more than 1 pixel. Sometimes I'll do 2. We can just do 2 for, you know what. Yeah. And so this is where you can see where you have substantial stitching problems. Like if there is frame to frame or exposure to exposure differences, if you have star trailing in one image and there's no star trailing in the next, this will become readily apparent. So I can see automatically exactly where the first image and the second image were stitched. And I'm going to run my mouse right along here, but you can see the stars on the right side of this image are much more elongated, and there's a definite transition zone right here. So when we enable this minimization, it actually doesn't look too bad there. Sometimes when that's the case, when there's star trailing in one spot and not in another, it'll just look like garbage. And so you'll have to like basically start all over. Oh, Command H. I swear I did that.
Okay.
Thanks.
That's quite enough of the Command H discussion. So I want to show you this other section of the video where if you go to the Star Tracker course, it's working with trees. And this is a challenging part where when you deal with, is it me or the sound gone? Okay, they can hear okay. Woohoo! Woo. Photoshop confuses you. I feel you, Kathy. So in this section, he's going to bring in his pictures and first do some Adobe Camera Raw edits to it. And I wanted you guys to hear this segment. So let's go straight into that.
When we pull it in the Lightroom. We've made our adjustments here. Colors look pretty good. I like when you add the vibrance and saturation.
Okay, let's go to the beginning of this. Looks like it remembered my position.
Increase between. Pull this temperature.
And you'll have to ignore the fact that I'm in the background because unfortunately I couldn't get in a good clean spot and I had to fix that later on. So showing Aaron King sitting back there in the background is distracting. It's not there the whole video.
Downscale your image, you won't see those.
Okay, let's just start from here.
All right, and then the last thing, I go to this far left. I don't really do any curves in here. We'll do curves later on after we stitch. Okay, so the last thing, and this will be entirely up to taste. Most people, so I shoot daylight all the time.
I'll get my face out of here.
My temperature is usually very warm, and that makes kind of a bland, flat foreground. So I usually pull this temperature down. I try not to go below 4,500. If there's snow, sometimes the snow looks dirty. You basically start with your lens corrections, apply, remove chromatic aberration, apply the lens profile. If you don't have your profile, you know, they've done a pretty good job adding a lot of manufacturers here, but if for whatever reason the lens isn't there, you can try, you know, they didn't have a lot of Samyangs, but then they started adding them. If they didn't have the Samyang that you're using, you can try a different manufacturer with the same lens focal length and see if that works.
Just making sure I can see the cursor. I was watching a video and I saw us do this and I didn't notice it on my video feed, but I believe the cursor looks like hit for you to point something. Looks like I'm talking to him.
Not there.
What a bummer.
Go back and then to go to manual, remove any defringing that can occur along the trees edges of your horizon. If you have a very bright horizon, like in this case, there is quite a bit of light along that horizon.
That's what I try to get out of the way.
Good. If you pull it too far down, your snow will.
Okay, so he's talking about temperature now. It's about temperature and white balancing his image here for this moment, and he talks about at some point in this about ISO, and I don't believe I have it perfectly marked anymore, so let's hope he covers it.
You know, about 5,000. I pull this down generally until the snow looks white. Like that looks pretty good. If you pull it too far down, your snow will turn blue. That's something I don't prefer. Totally up to you. If you want, you can adjust the green slider. In this case, I think it was fine at +8, which was the standard. So for your foreground, I always pull down these highlights. So pull down the highlights along your horizon. That will make blending the trees so much easier. You can go as far down as you want. You just want this area to match what this area will kind of look like. So this exposure here ultimately will match this sky exposure here. You can see Mars here, those trees that are blurred. It's still pretty bright. So alternatively, I can bring down the exposure a little bit. Bring those highlights back up a little bit. You know, and that looks a little bit better. Now, I have to recover the shadows that I lost down here. Sometimes not a problem, depends on your sensor. A lot of sensors, some Canon sensors will have poor shadow recovery. You just have to find that balance between pulling this exposure down, pulling the highlights down so they match your corresponding tracked exposure as best as possible, and being able to recover any information that you have here in your foreground shadows. Like I said, most foregrounds are going to be mostly shadows. And so if you have to crank up your ISO for like Canon sensors, so you have lower read noise and better shadow recovery, that's something you just have to do. For Nikon sensors, they have a little bit better shadow recovery, same with Sony sensors. And you don't have to worry about that quite as much. You won't get crazy like shadow noise back in here. So, yep. And again, you'll notice if the blacks were like way down here, you can always turn this on and see where you're clipping those blacks. I try not to clip them too much. I don't want to pull these up crazy.
Right,
I don't really adjust contrast.
He's going to do the last few bits of his message. Let me show you guys. Right now, Brendan is over there working on the camera, and I'm getting moved up and set up for our Photog favorites that are happening right after this over on our Facebook page. And so you guys can see me over here working from this spot on the desk as Brendan's moving that camera around. But this section, he's going to finish up talking about that. And then I want to show you guys a quick blurb from his work on getting the foreground awesome. So let me just finish up this section and we'll go forward.
Sometimes I apply clarity, a local contrast. In this case, I think I cranked the vibrance and saturation. So when I took these pictures, it was still very early spring up in the Uintas, and you can see this grass is like basically still dead. It hasn't come to life. There's a few little flowers in there.
Sorry about that. I was in the way, guys. I couldn't get myself off.
Bland, colorless foreground. So if you want, you can crank up that vibrance. If you're like Paul Wilson, he turns it up to 100. No, I'm just kidding. So in this case, I said the vibrance maybe to 25 and the saturation to 10 or 15.
For those of you who use Lightshop more than Photoshop and maybe never go into Lightroom instead of going into Photoshop, you're going to recognize these sliders. They're the same. This Adobe Camera Raw was the beginning of Lightroom. And so these sliders are the same that you see in Lightroom.
Pretty good. You can always adjust this later on when we pull it in the Lightroom. We've made our adjustments here. Colors look pretty good. I like when you add the vibrance and saturation, when you have the reflection shots are kind of out of focus a little bit and you can see the star colors. That's really cool. For some reason that just that's my cup of joe right there.
That's my jam too, man. Love that. So I'm going to fast forward to this work. He goes through hours of work. No, just kidding. It takes about 20 minutes. Let's see. I have a message that pops up right here, and you can see it. Let's see. Is it in a second?
Switch fingers and keep brushing.
So he's just brushing away, selecting and masking out the sky from the reflection down below and the sky above. And he's trying to make these individual spots in between the trees work. And so he's busy all the way till minute 48, and it's minute 43:54. And so you can see how it takes quite some time to do the detail work of these kind of masks. And the reason why these kind of masks are necessary is that you're moving with the stars, and so your foreground
so you can see
is fuzzy. Let me pause him for a sec. Your foreground is fuzzy. So when you're working with the star tracker and it's sliding like this, you're taking your sky shot and your ground shot separate. Because if you try to use your ground shot from the sky as you're tracking those stars, your ground is just moving constantly. So you have to do a completely different shot for this ground, and that's what he has here. But he knows he's pulling in his beautiful sky, and he's going to have to mask around all these individual gnarly trees, which is the absolute worst. And you know what? I didn't transition over. I hate studio mode. Studio mode sends me off every time. You can change the settings on studio mode. It's behind the scenes crud. OBS. So let's just watch what he does after this. Right on my lips.
That sounds.
Stop talking, Aaron.
Portion. Where did it?
So he's going to get the sky.
And hopefully
here's his sky, and you can see already what I'm talking about, that moving foreground. So he has to move it around, and you end up learning how he processes that, fixes this, makes this look nice. Well, okay, now it's really shining, and then it gets even better.
Curves, you can generate more contrast.
There's so much good information in this one.
One thing that...
And then...
So if you don't do this... So we can re-enable this layer mask that we created early on, this luminosity mask. And you can see it's
right about
those highlights.
Here. We have 7 more minutes. Let's watch.
All right, and then again, go to feather and just crank this bad boy up. And what I'll do, it'll just smooth those transitions between areas that got a lot of brushing or no brushing, and just make it a cleaner edit. I think it looks a little blurry at that display scaling. Cool. I think that looks really good. You've brought out. So my D800E, everyone asks me this all the time. Why don't you use a modified camera? I did for a while, and I did all the modifications myself. And it was cool, and I still use a modified camera for my telescope. But I felt like the gains you get in the H-alpha signal weren't worth all the color balancing issues that I had. So my D800E is not modified. It still has hot pass filter, and it blocks off H-alpha signal somewhat. But even at the 25 to 30% H-alpha signal that it is allowing through, you get pretty cool reds in here. You can see them along the edge of Antares and the Rho Ophiuchi, and if you go up here to Zeta Ophiuchi, you can see some more reds. Obviously, the bright objects like Lagoon Nebula, Eagle Nebula, and Omega Nebula, and the Trifid, you know, the H-alpha signal there is so overwhelming that you're going to see it. And then if you come down here, you can see this is the Cat's Paw Nebula down here, and then I can't remember what nebula this is. But again, more H-alpha. And this is brought out by editing. And if you do it right, you're going to see those colors. If you choose a good color balance, you'll see those colors. I think a lot of people, they set their color balance to blue. And the more blue you set it, the more just the color balance will mask that signal. Anyways, side shoot. Whoops, did not want to go select a mask.
So then let's fast forward until you see how he puts together the final image.
Match. And then we're gonna go edit, transform, warp. And then we're gonna pull the blurred sections along the corresponding non-blurred. So this is probably a stitching artifact here. You see this tree is going to match this tree, but it's angled weird. And so when the when AutoPano Giga saw that, it didn't know how to account for the rotation of the sky, and so it probably picked one of the sky shots and angled it weird. And so that's why this tree looks goofy in this exposure here. But we can warp it a little bit and do our best to bring it all together. Yep, that's going to be a tough one. So you can see as I warp this over, things aren't matching perfectly over here. Oh, that looks okay. You know what? I think this needs to be rescaled. So let's hit enter.
Let's go further in this.
To eliminate the shadows over here.
Getting rid of some last little bits.
Image. So
the reflection. And then he's doing the last little bit of work.
Increase contrast because you weren't totally happy. I use Lightroom as like the finishing touches. You know, I'm not going to go wild. If the sky is a little bit too red, you can drop that temperature down a little bit. See, now you've made it a little bit bluer, a little more pleasing on the eyes. And then same with the reflection and foreground. You know, it's a little bit too orange and weird. Of course, it was like a rough time of year. Spring hadn't actually sprung. It was just thawing. Cool.
And that's the image. We're running out of time. This was a sneak peek of a fantastic episode of Eric Benedetti talking about, let me bring myself back up even though I won't be looking right at you guys, talking about how to post-process a sky the way that he does it, plus bring it into a foreground that has been moving with your star tracker. It's all in the course. You could see it all in here if you guys join in with us It is $97 to jump into this course. It's not inexpensive, but there's content being added every day. Recently, we just added, okay, I shouldn't say every day, all the time. And there is a new video that came in from Drew, who was helping out with, well, say this way. Gear Time Drew and Brendan had a chance to go up there with Eric Benedetti, hang out with him, and have his gear, his equipment. Drew, you're on here. You loved it. You had your gear and equipment opened up for the first time out of the box and put together with Eric Benedetti's help. It was awesome. And so that's classic. It's really interesting when you have someone who is teaching how to use something that they know really well. They're trying to think of all the questions that they should answer. With Drew in this situation, there were questions that Drew had on the spot that Eric could answer that he never probably thought of in the original presentation on how to use your gear. Because we did all that you need to do to get star tracking. Here's a talk about all the gear, and then you have this section. And so there's a chance that there's several little priceless gems that came through in this video that weren't there for almost the whole first year. And so there's new content coming. We really try to make it absolutely worth your guys' time and money. So jump in with us and get Eric Benedetti's photography course of star tracking. It's awesome. This is what the page will look like if you guys go to the right spot. The link down below will take you here. Oh, it's 99. 97 was the other course. And this is his course. So thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching Photog Adventures Milky Way Wednesday. I'm Aaron King. I'm going to bail out of here so that we can get ready and going for the Photog favorite. Let me go ahead and Photog favorites. We're going to be sitting over there talking about a bunch of winter pictures that are just amazing. It's going to be really tough to pick a favorite. If you guys want to hang out with us, go over to our Facebook page and join us there. Here, give us about 5-minute delays. We got to set up the live feed over on Facebook, and then we'll be in here and we'll be rolling. So thanks, guys. Have a good one, and we'll see you guys next week on Wednesday. And transition, go. Boom. Now, go. It's not doing it. How about now and now? There it is. Night, guys.